Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to the course titled Strategic Communication for Sustainable Development. My name is Aradhna Malik and I'm helping you with this course. And we have been discussing various things, and the point is that sustainable development is such a massive, such a beautiful, such a complex concept that one doesn't know where to start from and how to how to prioritize different topics, because every topic in this area is so very important. Every topic in the field of communication for sustainable development is so very important. So today we are going to take up another topic that's an amazingly complex, amazingly classy, amazingly interesting idea, and that is the topic of media in sustainable development. And how does media help sustainable development? I mean, media has invaded our lives. Media has taken over our entire lives. When I was growing up, entertainment meant going out and scratching your knees and playing with your buddies and playing with your siblings, and that was entertainment for us. Information meant the books that were at home or the library. We had to physically go to the library at a time when the library was open, and we had to go to the library and we had to study there, and that was what information was. And nowadays information means Google, information means millions of hits at the click of a button, information means hundreds of channels at the click of a button on the television, information means so many different kinds of things, so many different kinds of connections, and all of this is information. So when we talk about media, media has exploded information. It has led to this slew of information in our literally in our labs. And so that is what we'll discuss as to what do we do with all of this resource. I mean, so much we can do with whatever we have, and that is what we'll talk about, media and sustainable development. Now this is from a paper by Professor Claudia DeWitt from this book that I showed you at some point, right in the beginning of the course I showed you this book. So in this book there's a paper by Professor Claudia DeWitt, and I will share the details with you in the list of references. And she says, she tries to connect communication, media and sustainable development, and she says that communication is considered a means of anchoring the vision of sustainable development in society. But successful communication involves a mastery of the language that we use to communicate, to share our ideas with the media, the language that we use to get in touch with the community, a mutual ability and willingness to communicate. It's not only the language we use, it is also our ability to communicate. It is also our willingness to communicate. I should want to do something for the community. I cannot talk about development till I am engaged with the community, till I am committed to my community, till I know what the community is about. So it has to be, I have to be in tune with the community. So willingness. I should also have the ability to connect with the community. I can't go into a community and say, yes, I'm willing, I want to help, but the community doesn't understand what I'm saying. And I face that problem here in West Bengal because I don't speak the language. I can follow it quite a bit, but if I try and do something, I visited a couple of villages several times around the IIT campus, and I feel handicapped. And because I'm not able to reach, I'm not able to connect to people, even though I look like them, I dress like them, but when I start talking and the willingness is there, they can see the passion, they can see my interest. Despite that, my ability to connect with them, and occasionally I'll use a few sentences of broken Bengali, and then the language plays a role, my ability to connect to them. So the kinds of examples I'll use maybe will not be the same as what they would be expecting, as opposed to somebody who has grown up in a village in West Bengal speaking to them. So that person would know the local dialect, would know what people's problems are, what different things are called, who to talk to and how, etc. So I mean it's a mixture of all of these things. So knowing which discourse the Communication Act is a part of, and then if I go into Communication Act theory, it's going to be very complicated. So furthermore, it involves accounting for the social structures of a communicative situation in order to be able to assess the allocation of roles in the communication. I need to be able to understand who it is that I'm talking to, and why am I talking to him or her, and how the social structure is shaped in and through communication, and how should the communication, that the style that I'm adopting, cater to the existing social structure, and how should it help maintain, or how should it facilitate the maintenance of the social structure, and how should I indicate respect for the social structure. If I'm speaking to an elderly male, for example, in a village in West Bengal, the way I would do it would need to communicate my respect for this person's position, would need to communicate my understanding of what this person can do within the society, would need to indicate how important this person is in the village. If I'm speaking to a child, I would need to communicate through my tone, through the words that I use, that I'm concerned about the child, that I'm affectionate towards the child, that I'm looking after the welfare of the child, that the child can look up to me as an elder, the child can come and talk to me as an elder. So all of those roles have to be played in just a few sentences, and that is what this is talking about. Communication thread. So this is this is how these things are connected. Then the whole idea for communication thread, this comes from the experiments by Stephen Gray, in which he worked on electrical conduction using a physical hemp thread in it's not 1979, it is 1729. I'm sorry about the gaffe there, and the date here should be 1729. So this is not 1979, this year is 1729. Anyway, so this is based on his experiments on electrical conduction, and that is where this whole idea of communication threads comes from, and that has become the basis of modern day telephone and internet connection. Okay, some theoretical perspectives on media from the perspective of critical theory. Critical theory presumes that social relationships are power relationships, and they are indicative of a social hierarchy and not coherent with notions of equality or democracy. So critical theory says that there is nothing as democracy, there is nothing as equality, there is nothing as, we don't get in touch with people because we think they are peers. We get in touch with, we establish relationships, we establish connections with people to reinforce our position in the hierarchy within the society. So that is what critical theory assumes. And based on this, critical theory says that the functions of media are, one is the persuasive function. The media tries to integrate people in the system of consumption without arousing their resistance. The serves to, it should be serves to, the word here should be serves to. So media serves to integrate people in the system of consumption without arousing their resistance. And so media tries to, or when we talk about this, media helps us become a part of the economic setup without really realizing that we are buying things we don't need, or it helps us contribute to the economy by influencing us to purchase things, or to consume things, or to consume information, or to take what we are given without resisting the taking of what we are giving. That is the persuasive function. The orienting function is media influences the consciousness of people by their biased tendencies in representing the options for action. So not only does media help us accept what we are given, it also helps us channel or direct our attention towards the options for action. So here is a problem, and then media will show us a bunch of actions, and then we say, okay, we don't even want to think of possible alternatives because a whole bunch of alternatives has already been given to us by the media. So media helps us direct our attention to the preferred options for action. It gives us a direction in which our thought should proceed. That is the orienting function. The ontological function, media informs us, gives us knowledge. And which knowledge? The knowledge that the content writers, the people who decide the content in the media want us to have. So media also decides which knowledge we should have. There are certain topics about which we will not find much information. We can try, and if we are really committed, we look for it. But many topics don't really come up that much. So media serves this function. Media has the potential to shape the cultural and social identity of people, and the hegemonic role of media in the interpretation of messages has the potential to influence how social messages are conveyed and received. So, and we'll talk about how, the different levels of media involvement in a little bit, how much, which topics are put up there, how these topics are treated, help us understand which topics we need to pay attention to. They also help us shape our understanding of the culture of the world around us. We understand where we are in relation to the society. So media gives us all of these ideas. Then models that determine how different topics are communicated through mass media. So various ways in which different topics are communicated through mass media are, one is the cumulative model. The cumulative model talks about an intensification of reporting leads to a higher ranking of the topic on the audience agenda. Various topics are in the news these days. For example, today, the day when I'm recording this video, we had news about 2 earthquakes. There was one earthquake yesterday, in Myanmar, and the previous night there was an earthquake in Italy. And so everybody is talking about these earthquakes. Everybody is, media is full of these reports, and repeated reports about these earthquakes help us understand that this is an important topic that needs to be discussed. The threshold model says that a topic becomes a part of the audience agenda when a minimum amount of reporting has taken place. So a minimum amount of reporting is required for a topic to become a topic of interest. When some news is vaguely mentioned in the media and it disappears, we don't pay much attention to it. But if the same news is mentioned, is brought up in the media through various channels, it is brought up in the media, it is, it's on television, it is on your social media, it is, you see it on your search engines, so it's popping up everywhere. And you see it long enough and it has the potential to stay in your mind a lot longer. So that's how the topic becomes a part of the audience agenda. What should the audience pay attention to is decided by how the media portrays it, how many times the media portrays it. That is the threshold model. The inertia model says that when a topic has achieved a certain level of importance on the audience agenda, then increases in that importance through more intensive reporting are unlikely to occur. So this means that once a topic becomes, say, priority number 2 or priority number 3 or priority number 10, then pushing it to a higher priority becomes very difficult. Initially, one can try as hard as one wants, and then it goes up in the eyes of the audience, but after a while it stays there. And then pushing it any further, to a higher position becomes difficult. For example, let's take the example of something that we see, on our news channels, in cinema halls, everywhere we see this. The Indian government is discouraging smoking. So Indian public health system is discouraging smoking. So everywhere we'll see cigarette smoking is injurious to health, and I personally believe that. So I'm quite happy that this is being done. And you'll see a skull, and you'll see smoke emanating, and you'll see these advertisements where they show the lungs of the people are being squeezed out to show you how much tar accumulates and everything. So these advertisements, the number of such advertisements is the same. and they are put on our televisions routinely, and anytime. The government has become very aggressive about it these days. So anytime we see any scene that demands, or if we see anybody smoking in any scene, in any television program, a message pops up that we don't endorse smoking, it's injurious to health. So it's in our television soaps, it's in our movies, it's in our cinema halls, it's everywhere. And it's been going on for months and years, I think now. So I don't remember the exact figures, but that is how aggressively the Indian government is trying to tackle this menace, this public health menace. And it's such a wonderful thing, because everybody realizes, I don't know how much impact it has had on chronic smokers, but occasional smokers definitely. People who were thinking about beginning to smoke because of peer pressure are now discouraged. So that is the kind of impact media has on our lives. I mean, it's there, it's right in front of you, and it has acquired an importance. And these youngsters, teenagers go to cinema halls and they go to theaters and they watch movies, and then they see this right in front of them, and they say, no, I'm not going to smoke. So that is the impact it has. So that's the inertia model. And in real life, what happens is that different topics, all of these things, inertia model pushes a message to a certain point. The threshold model keeps it there, and the cumulative model makes it go on and on and on. And it is a combination of these models that we need to use for messages related to sustainable development. We need to make sure that all messages related to sustainable development are seen in a light of some importance. They are seen as important by the people in the community, by the people who can do something about them. Then we also need to remind them again and again, so they realize that yes, it is important, and it is priority number 1, priority number 2, priority number 3, hopefully not less than priority number 3. So, or not below priority number 3, but it has to be at a higher priority. And it is cumulative. It's not today. It's not a random thing. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. It is ongoing. It has to be done. It has to be done today. It will need to be done 5 years from now. It will need to be done 10 years from now. So it is going to be important. As long as we human beings are living on this earth, we need to work on sustainable development. We need to conserve our resources. We need to leave more for our future generations than we got, or at least the same amount, so that they don't suffer. So involvement of viewers in selection of and attention to media content. How can the viewers be involved? The users and gratification approach describes people as recipients who look for the satisfaction of their needs in the media. An individual intervenes from this perspective in the process of media communication by selecting, testing and rejecting media content. So for example, let's take the example of playing music when we are doing something important, playing music at work. Now most of us don't listen to music, at least I listen to a lot of music at work, but the idea behind listening that music is to drown out the surrounding sound. So I sit in my office, I'm doing some work, and I have mild, low volume instrumental music playing in the background, and that helps me focus on my work and I become more productive. So my need at that time for that music is it's not to enjoy the music, it's not to enjoy the beautiful music that is playing in the background. My need is to have something pleasurable, something pleasant that can drown out the unpleasant sounds in the background that distract me from my work. Somebody shouting, somebody screaming, somebody banging their doors, people coming, going, students talking outside my office. I don't want to hear all that. So this music drowns those sounds, and it's pleasant, it's pleasurable, so it keeps me on track, and there is a rhythm to it, so it helps me focus on my work. So that is the need. Now when I hear such music, somebody puts up such music, and everybody has a different propensity, everybody has a different kind of liking. So I like a certain kind of music, and when I hear this music and it serves that purpose, then I keep it. If it does not serve that purpose, if the music itself distracts me from my work, then I will not listen to it. I have a different varieties of music are available online. but I select the music that helps me drown out these sounds. So I have the choice, I make the choice to select a particular type of music and or reject it. Then so I intervene from this perspective in the process of media communication by selecting. I take a piece of music, it seems okay, I test it, I sit with it for a period of time, and I see if I am more productive at the end of this, with playing with music, or working with the music playing and working with the music not playing. And if I see an enhancement in my productivity, then I first test it out and I evaluate it, and then if it serves the purpose, I keep it. If it doesn't serve the purpose, I throw it out. The accurate interpretation of written text is dependent on the literacy level and level of familiarity of the reader with the language in which the text has been written. So, for example, English is a second, third, fourth language for many people in India. Now, English newspapers, people read, we talk about sustainability, sustainable communication. I put out pamphlets in English. Oh, it's a language that connects everybody. People may understand it, school-going people may understand it, but they may not feel whatever is being said because their familiarity with the language may not be so high, especially in rural areas. Or we say Hindi is a national language, everybody should learn it, everybody is learning it, it's there in schools. But the local language of the people in this region is Bengali. So, if writing something out in Hindi or sharing a play that is that uses Hindi as its language, or putting up posters that have Hindi in them, it does not help people connect to the message, then what is the point of using that language? I mean, so we need people to understand whatever it is that we are trying to tell them. So we need people to understand the importance of sustainable development. We need people to understand the importance of their community, keeping their community safe and healthy, and so we need to talk to them in a language that they will not only understand, that they will be able to relate to, that they will have emotions for. So that is, and we may put out a message, but if they are not that familiar with the language, then they may not interpret it in the right tone. The television has been critiqued as more a source of entertainment than information. Television is entertains us, it gives us a pleasant feeling, but at least the critics have said that the television doesn't really inform you. So communication through computers is increasingly preferred because it requires literacy and gives the reader an opportunity to read all kinds of content, even contribute to the content via portals like Wikipedia or blogs or personal websites. Now, we use computers. We used to use them for information. We used to use them for analysis of data. But increasingly the internet has become so much more user friendly, so much more participant friendly. So we can actually engage in participatory communication. We can change things on Wikipedia. We can go and modify content on Wikipedia. There are people monitoring the content that is put up. But then we can post personal blogs. We can participate in the knowledge creation process on international media by using computers. And that is the one very big benefit of having computers or computer mediated technology. So that is now becoming increasingly more acceptable, and we need to be literate in whichever language we post our messages in. We need to be literate in a language of our choice. So we learn something, we learn to read and write, and we learn to use technology, and we get a chance to share our ideas, and that is what makes it so exciting. Media and sustainability communication. Knowledge about the effects and use of new media enhances participation in changing communication processes. Media communication must take into account both communication culture problems in local, regional and national areas, as well as new social ties across national borders. So involving new communication culture opportunities as well as progress for humankind. We understand the local culture. We also understand, if you want to put up something online, in order to use media properly, we must understand how our messages are going to affect other people in other localities, in other countries. And we learned to be considerate about other people, and we have to do it. Global communication about new media opens opportunities for individuals to communication across national borders about how the ecological basis of human life or distributive justice across synchronous and asynchronous communication spaces can best be secured. Media communication has become global communication, so we understand how things are happening in other places. We also get a sense of whether we are being treated fairly or unfairly, etc. So, we can compare ourselves to other places, to other people in the rest of the world, and that's what media does for us. How do new media technologies facilitate sustainable communication? New media enable infinite connections among people, sources of information, topics and concepts. They produce information and communication networks. Some properties of communication networks facilitated by new media are: one is diversity. Diversity means the range of options we have to express ourselves, autonomy, the amount of control we have over the medium, interactivity, how much we can participate in the media, and openness. So interactivity is how the creators and the recipients of the messages are in touch with each other. Openness means the freedom of thought it gives you. Blogging refers to a personal. Blogging helps us maintain a personal diary. It is in addition to that, it is a medium that helps share our opinion with the rest of the world. So that is what blogging helps us do. Okay. Role of computers. Computers are increasingly becoming a very important tool of communication, or a new medium of communication, no longer new actually. So computers help us in two ways. One, they give us conversation support and transition services. The second is the decision support. Conversation support, we learn so much in and through conversations, just talking. It gives us, we use email, instant messaging, etc. for our conversations. It gives us a chance to question problematic action orientations and routines. It gives us a chance to support. It supports the process of finding new, more sustainable routines. Social networks help us connect with our peers in different places. For example, and contribute to overcoming the conflict between traditional action orientations and societal subsystems like short-term profit maximization in the economy, and to developing new orientations in line with the ideas of sustainability. So social networks help us whenever people from different areas come together, there is bound to be some discontent, some difference in opinion. And when we go on social networks and we just talk to people, we don't question them, we just talk to them, a lot of the questions we have, a lot of the confusions we have are clarified. We also get in touch with our peers. For example, this particular course, I had never imagined maybe 6 months ago that I would be offering a course called Strategic Communications for Sustainable Development. I had no idea. Then I started reading up, and I had read this book on sustainability communication, but I did not know that I could actually form this into a proper course. And I spoke to some people, and we had a workshop on sustainable development, and then I got more interested, and I spoke to some people in the field. And I have a friend in Kenya who's working with orphans, and so I spoke to her and we connected, and then she gave me some ideas, and I spoke to some other friends who are working in the area of sustainable development. And just in and through random aimless talk, I came upon this idea of offering this course, and here I am. And this is the big, huge benefit of having computers facilitate our conversations. So it's amazing how we break traditional rules. I could have, traditional method of doing this would have been, oh yes, I've read this, okay, now let me think about it, let me write a review paper, let me write a concept paper, float it, and if I become an authority in sustainability communication someday, then maybe I will start lecturing about it 10 years from now. But this portal said, okay, you want to try something out, go ahead, and now you will give me feedback, and based on your feedback I will see how this progresses. So that's the benefit. The second benefit is decision support. The way computers allow us to analyze information is amazing. You know, we have all this data. Computers help us visualize the data. It's all in front of our eyes. Instead of going through something that is written on a piece of paper, we have it in front of our screen. We can look at different pockets of data. We can, you know, compare things. We can analyze things. So it enhances the visibility of problems. It helps us understand problems and generate alternative possible solutions to the problems. Then we try to anticipate stricter regulatory standards and explore new competitive opportunities using the computer, because we have all this data. We see, okay, what can we do, how will it affect something, without actually implementing anything. We can play around with things, we can see how they will work out. It enhances the capability of the users. You have to learn to use the softwares, you have to learn to use the programs that can help you analyze information. It helps you provide information on an ad hoc basis rather than on routinely generated data. So we are not, you know, in the normal routine of things, we would probably generate, say, maybe daily reports, maybe weekly reports, maybe monthly reports. But with the help of computers, we can generate a report whenever we want to. You come to know of a new way of doing things, you generate a report based on the data you have. You take that data and then you share it with like-minded people, get their opinions, and, you know, very soon one can have tentative solutions, and that is the big, huge benefit. Then facilitate new forms of thinking and establish new forms of argumentation. So, you know, we come to know so many ways. We find out what other people in other countries are doing, how they are dealing with problems similar to ours. And I'll show you a very interesting example of this networking business in the upcoming sessions. And amazing, I mean, and it has been done in India, so I'm keeping you, some of you may know what I'm talking about, but it's a very nice surprise for all of you. Then presentation of data in a form that it can be understood by and communicated to the stakeholders. So computers also help us present our data. They also help us communicate our data to stakeholders who can understand it, who can make sense of it, and who can use it for the benefit of the people who are actually going to be you know, benefited by this presentation of data, by the analysis of data. So computers help us take our data, and I don't know Bengali, for example, and I process all this information. I write up something in English or in Hindi, and the translator will help me type it up in Bengali. I can get, of course, you know, this is not foolproof, but then I can have a tentative thing ready that I can get verified by a colleague who's fluent in Bengali, and then so it saves both of us some time. I just type it up in Hindi, and you know, using one of the translation programs available online, I translate whatever I've thought about into Bengali and just take it to somebody who speaks the local language, and then they can modify it. So both of us are saving time because this dear machine is at work. So amazing possibilities, and we'll discuss you know, newer forms of how we can use computers for sustainable for communication and sustainable development in the upcoming sessions, and then we'll wrap up the whole course very soon. So thank you very much for listening, and keep thinking about it and keep mulling over whatever has been discussed. Thank you.